C9 had aspirations of qualifying for VCT Masters Shanghai, but fell short during playoffs. Was their strong performance during the regular season split before playoffs a showcase of what this team actually is, or was it just a flash in the pan and this team isn't gonna make it? Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking about C9 and their chances of making Champions 2024. So this is the board we have today. All the stats on this board, including the map stats, are stats from Stage 1. That is when this team made a roster swap and brought in Rooney and Moose. And early on it looked like maybe this was something that was going to work in the long term, but at the same time we had seen this back in 2023. This team had a disappointing start to the year at lock-in, but still looked like they were going to be a good team, and then the infamous dropping of Ye, also swapping out Vanity for Rooney, and then the team had a very good regular season, being one of the top teams in the VCT Americas League, but bowed out at playoffs, did not make it to Tokyo. And Stage 1 went in a pretty similar fashion. They make a roster change, they go on a good win streak, and they look like one of the top teams, and then they lose their first and only match of playoffs and disappoint yet again. So at this point, this is a concerning trend for this team, especially because we see some familiar faces from that roster. Rooney and Zeppa were part of that roster. Vanity was of course swapped out, but he has been on C9 for quite a while, aside from 2023 where he was briefly off of it. Oxy is a new member, and he's been looking like a fantastic pickup for them, one of the best Leon duelists in Valorant right now. And as I said early on, it looked pretty good. Their win-loss record during Stage 1 was 5-1, so only losing one match during that split. Their maps were 10-6, their rounds were 178 to 158 for a round differential of +20. But then of course they lost to G2 in playoffs. It was a single elimination bracket. They were in the knockout round, which was different from how the rest of the playoffs work, so they were a casualty of the unforgiving format that we see in the VCT today. One thing that I definitely saw with this team is that their playstyle seemed like something that wasn't super sustainable. This team lost 6 out of 7 first maps, so every time they played a match aside from that match against MIBR, they would lose the first map. They would start slow and then they would just grind out the rest of the match to get the victory, much like how G2 was doing similar things at Shanghai. And just like we saw with G2, sometimes that's something that can be a bit of a bubble. It can burst. It isn't the most sustainable way of winning. You can't always start matches late. It will eventually shoot yourself in the foot. They also only had one 2-0 victory during the entire stage, that victory coming against MIBR, one of the worst teams in the entire league. So yeah, you should be 2-0ing them, but they always seem to lose that first map and just start slow, and G2 were able to take advantage of that during the playoffs. This was a team where when they won, it was a really good comeback, it was a good little story, but if they lost, it was kind of bad. Looking at this team's record on 2 separate maps, we have their best map of the split, which was Sunset. They had a 3-0 record on it with attack win percentage of 72%, and defense being 52. Probably want that defense stat to be a little bit better, but 52% is still solid, and they went undefeated during the split. One map that they struggled on was Ascend. They had a 1-3 record on it, attack was 43%, and defense was 38%. So they're really not good on either sides of that map, and they were taken to it 4 times during the split, and it cost them. Especially that defense number on a map like Ascend, it should be better than 38%. Their overall map pool isn't bad. They don't have a ton of negative records on maps, but you know, they're even on Lotus with a 2-2 record on it so far. Icebox is 2-1, could have put that on the board too, but it's nothing that really screams this is a top team that is going to dominate. Granted, this is 7 matches, so overall not a huge sample size, but definitely you want your map pool to be a lot deeper than just having one map that you're pretty good on. So moving on to the Stage 1 player stats, and I just made a video about Leviathan talking about if they were carried by Ospos, and I kind of came to the conclusion that not totally, but definitely Ospos is the main driver of that team. But with C9, it's hard to argue that this team isn't carried by Oxy. Please get this man some help. During Stage 1, he had a player rating of 1.22, which was second in the entire split. He had a kills per round of 1.01, so just to put that in perspective, this man got a kill on average once a round, and that is the first time I have seen that stat during the VCT this season when I'm just looking at overall stats during these kinds of stages. Even Ospos, who had a better rating than him at a 1.25, had a kills per round of 0.95. So even a player that people consider to be the best in the world didn't have as good as a kills per round of Oxy. That's how good this guy was, which also means he has a very impressive KD ratio of 1.26. That was third just behind Cryocells and Ospos. Ospos had a 1.51, which is just insane. So Ospos is better at staying alive, while Oxy is just at least slightly better, at least during that stage, of just getting kills consistently. He was doing this while playing Jet and Raze. I think he's good on both of those characters. I think he is a very solid duelist player. Again, no complaints from Oxy. He's had a couple bad matches here and there, but he's still young. He's still going to go through some learning pains. But overall, C9 has to do everything they can to keep Oxy happy and keep him for as long as they possibly can. This kid is going to be insane for years to come. Moving on, we have one of the new additions in Rooney, who was, at least stats-wise, their second best player during the split. This man came back with a vengeance, proving to C9 that they never should have dropped him in the first place. He had a rating of 1.07, 8 kills per round of 0.69, and a KD ratio of 1.08. Doing this while playing Sova and Viper. So pretty decent stats, especially on the kill side of things when playing two roles that don't necessarily need to be getting all of them. A decent kills per round, he is second on the team in that stat, and a KD ratio not bad at 1.08. Rooney's stats last year were definitely not this good, so maybe being off that IGL role has helped him. Maybe he has a bit more freedom, just being able to play a support role and not have to worry about leading the whole team. Could we potentially see Rooney back on that IGL role if Vanity doesn't stay past the season? Probably, but overall, I think it might be best for him to stay as that role player. Moving on, we have Zeppa, who's been a very long-standing member of this team. He's been on C9 for a long time now. During Stage 1, he had a rating of 1.02, 8 kills per round of 0.65, and a KD ratio of 0.93. He was playing Sage, Skye, KO, and Gecko during the split. So playing that initiator role plus a little bit of Sage, I can see why Zeppa has been on this team for as long as he has. He is a good player, but overall, I just feel like at some point, change for the sake of change might be the way to go with Zeppa. He's not a bad player. He has shown that he can hang, but I do think that there's probably some better options out there for C9 in the offseason. But the org clearly likes the player. He could stay on this team past this season. I just feel like if they fall short yet again, they have to change some of these long-standing members. Moving on to the second new addition during Stage 1, we have Moose. He had a rating of exactly 1 during the stage, 8 kills per round of 0.63, a KD ratio of 1.04, and he was playing that Sentinel role, playing Killjoy and Cypher. Moose has been a solid addition to this team. He's not a world beater or anything, but he has been solid on that Sentinel role. Having a decent KD ratio, a kills per round, maybe you want that to be a bit higher. 0.63 is pretty low, but overall with the role that he's in, as long as he's not putting atrocious numbers up, then he's fine, and I do expect Moose to probably stay on this team past this season. Moving on, we have probably the biggest question mark in this roster, and that is Vanity. Vanity during Stage 1 did not have very good stats, but that's not something that has been unfamiliar in his career. He had a rating of 0.90, a kills per round of 0.57, and a KD ratio of 0.79. However, he was playing Smokes, playing Omen, Brimstone, and Viper. Vanity is just a big question mark of a player. I've been perplexed by his career in Valorant so far. He's been a part of C9 for quite a while now. He was a part of version 1 with Zelsis actually, way back. He joins the C9 org in 2021, and then he was on the team for a while. They fall short while he's on it. And then eventually that roster change was made when Rooney came in to replace him, and he kind of found himself back on this roster by just like the grace of Zelsis leaving to go to Sentinels. Zelsis did help build the original roster for 2024, and then he decides to go Sentinels, so Vanity steps in. I don't think Vanity is a bad caller or anything, but I definitely think with this team style of play during the season, they really need to tighten things up. They have to stop relying on comebacks. Comebacks are a great thing to be able to do, but you can't start slow every single match. They have to learn how to come out swinging. They have to learn how to have a deeper map pool. There are a lot of improvements that this team needs that does come from the IGL role and the coaching. So while Vanity isn't the worst option that you could have as IGL, I definitely think that there could be someone else better out there that can help this team play a bit more structured. I'm not going to name names or anything. I'm not saying that I know better than the C9 roster management, but overall with Vanity, I don't know if he's going to be able to bring this team to champions. I don't know if he's going to be able to bring them to a tournament win if they make it to champions. If he can prove me wrong, I'm absolutely fine with that. I will gladly eat my words, but when it comes to Vanity, it just feels like we're just treading old water at this point, and eventually something has to change. So looking at these player stats from an overall perspective, you have Oxy performing incredibly well. You have Rooney and Moose being good, solid depth pieces. Zeppa doing okay, but then Vanity, in terms of his individual performance, drops off quite a bit. Again, not something we're not used to when it comes to Vanity. So when I look at this roster, it's not too different from how I looked at it going into this season when they had that original roster at kickoff. It's a roster that to me just kind of screams mid. There are some good pieces here. Oxy definitely getting this team a lot more wins than they maybe should have. It's not a bad team overall, but I just think with some of the teams that are going to be looking to bounce back, such as Sentinels, to be able to make it to champs, I don't know if I see C9 doing the same. They're a decent team. They might be able to upset some teams that should be better than them, but do I see them making champs? No, I just don't. But again, we'll see if they prove me wrong. Perfectly happy to eat my words and make a video about C9 doing well during Stage 2 and making it to champs. They will definitely be in playoffs for Stage 2. They already have the championship points and the wins to do it, so it's just a matter of doing something in those playoffs for this team. So we'll see how that goes for them. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this team. What do you think of the video? Do you think C9 is going to go on a run? Please click like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.